Here we go. All right. Hey, guys. It's been a while since I've done a YouTube video. I have had a little bit going on. In fact, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm actually doing my first YouTube video in my new apartment. I moved again, and hopefully I can stay here for a little bit because it's a really sweet place. But that's not anything over there. So I've been thinking about like coming back and doing a YouTube video, maybe even a couple more, and was wondering um, what to do. And I then get a notification from somebody who commented on a video I did 3 years ago unpacking the label of a Christian agnostic. And seeing that comment along with where I've been at spiritually for the last couple of years has really got me thinking. I never really got to share um, in like full detail um, where I'm at spiritually. Like, where am I at in terms of like, what's different in 2 years, what's remained the same. Um, and there is um, um, there's going to be some reference points that I'll use in from that video that I'll highlight throughout the talk, but I'll also mention some other stuff. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to give kind of like a 3D version of my journey and my faith. And I guess before I start, I just want to give a couple of prefatory remarks. First of all, I know that people aren't going to agree with this. Not everybody's going to hold true to what I have to say, which is completely fine. I guess all I ask is if that is you, and you're watching this now, or you'll watch it when I make this available and I share it on social media, that that um, that you would extend grace and mercy towards me, that you would listen with an open heart and with an open mind. I would do the same for you guys, so I would just hope and expect that same thing. I know that I have a habit sometimes of like not having the right words come to mind, or even the right tone come to me. My brain and my words don't always sync up properly. So um, if if any of you guys feel attacked, or if you feel offended, that's not my intent. I would never intentionally seek to do that, but at the same time, I'm at a space where I can't deny where I'm at. And so um, you know so if that is unique, and you are offended, or you are hurt, or you do feel like you're under attack based on what I'm about to say, know that it's not intentional. Know that I'm sorry in advance, truly. And I hope that you would forgive me for anything that I say, whether it's in the tone or if it's in the wording itself. I would just ask that while I am going to do my best to be conscious of people and their thoughts and feelings, I also have to make sure that I'm also conscious of my own, because I am also a human being and I also matter and I've got thoughts and feelings. And so I just ask that while, you guys are conscious of your feelings on this thing, that you're conscious of mine. And if there's anybody that watches this that is going to relate to this, then I, first of all, I hope that my listening to a little bit of my story will hopefully be proof that that you're not alone, that you've got people that are willing to ride shotgun with you in this season of life. And I'm going to try not to move or get up. If I do, I think it'll just be to get something to sort of like help go into sort of more depth and detail of where I'm at and why I'm there. But yeah, so 3 years ago, I did that video of unpacking the Christian agnostic, and I actually revisited that video after I got the comment regarding it. And side note, the comment was basically about wanting to go into a bigger explanation on that definition and on that book, which I will do one of these days, but I don't have the book. And while it is on my wish list, there's other books that I want to read that are at the top of the list. So while I am going to do it, I think for right now, I think both the video that I did 3 years ago and then this one that I'm making right now, I think will be enough right now. Unless I decide to do a spur of the moment third one, but we'll see. But I just remember re-watching that video and thinking to myself, and also like watching other videos that deal with the topic. And maybe I'll even post that video on the description or the comments. But it's definitely been very like therapeutic and also like relatable. The only part that I'm not sure about is, and I've talked with like maybe a friend of mine about it, but I don't really know what the quote correct term to describe it is. Like, part of me wants to think Christian agnostic is fine, but then I've also heard that you're basically just a follower of Jesus that just happens to have questions and doubts on a lot of things. I don't really know what to necessarily label myself as, but I do know that I actually relate to the definition and the example that it gives very well, which actually, before I move on, I want to go back and reread it for you guys. Again, this is in the video I did 3 years ago, but I just wanted to kind of revisit it. But a Christian agnostic is somebody who, quote, is immensely attracted by Christ and who seeks to show his spirit to meet the challenges, hardships, and sorrows of life in the light of that spirit, but who, though he is sure of many Christian truths, feels that he cannot honestly and conscientiously, quote, sign on the dotted line that he believes certain theological ideas about which some branches of the church dogmatize. His intellectual integrity makes him say about many things, it may be so, I do not know. And then the example that is given is, I am a Christian agnostic in the sense that I feel drawn to the Christian message And I feel that in Christianity, religion reaches its maturity in the person of Jesus. Yet I also feel that some of Christian doctrine is vague, wrong-headed, implausible, and perhaps even wrong. Therefore, I am perfectly fine with saying I do not see the evidence for doctrine such and such, so I will abstain from believing it. And this is where Christian agnosticism finds its home. So, again, I don't know if the term Christian agnostic or the term Jesus follower that just happens to have doubts and questions, I don't know which of those two feels more it's not that it feels good. I guess it's like feeling more peace with it, I guess. I don't know. But regardless of what's the right or wrong label, I guess, the definition and the example that they give is definitely 100%. I can totally relate to it. I mean, both in the church that I grew up in and in the church that I'm going to now, and even speakers from churches that I've heard, some that turn me on to the faith, others that turn me off, and it, regardless of denomination, there would be things that would turn me on, that would keep me interested and attracted to the faith. But at the same time, there's other aspects of those same people or other people that would turn me off. Sorry, I just woke up recently. But yeah, like there would be aspects that would turn me on and aspects that would turn me off. And like, for example, one of the things that turns me off to the faith sometimes, and for those of you that can relate to this, I'm sure there's people who can. I've grown to have a fondness for the Bible, so much so that I currently, with the start of the new year, I've been going through my own impromptu, slow Bible read-through plan. I just started to reread Revelation, and when I first read it, I went through the book of Daniel, and in starting to reread it, I have also started reading the Gospel of John. And then after I'm done with that, I will go through the epistles of John, and then I might go through Revelation maybe one more time after that. Might go through one of the other prophets. Don't know which one yet, and then after that, I'm thinking of maybe going through the Acts, because I kind of want to learn more about the Pentecost and the Holy Spirit coming down. I also want to learn more about. I might do at some point Proverbs and compare them to the Gospels, because I heard from actually one of my roommates say that when you compare the Proverbs with the parables that Jesus gives in the Gospels, they're basically like the same thing. There's just there's more of like the 3D version in the New Testament, with it being Jesus talking, in those parables. So that's like very, very interesting stuff. And partly why I'm doing that is because it's one, like, Revelation has always been a book that I have been somewhat attracted to, but at the same time, kind of afraid of it. And this leads to one of the things that turns me off to the faith sometimes, is when you have people, regardless of denomination, when they read a book like Revelation, or they read a book like, I guess another, like, any book in the Old Testament, for example, and you're talking about something that's there, and you're talking about it in the sense that, like, it's like a message that you're giving. But rather than talking about that and other things that you see in the book, you're talking just strictly about that. So, like, for instance, like Revelation. Constantly growing up, whenever I would hear Revelation being taught, it would always come from the perspective of end times and judgment and hell and fire and brimstone theology. I don't have a problem with that being talked about. I mean, if for, one of the Sundays, or, whatever gathering that a church does, whether it's the whole of the church or if it's a certain age group, like, I mean, it's okay if you're sharing that stuff, but if that's all you're sharing, when there's clearly other aspects, then there's kind of a problem, because if all you're doing is you're sharing one aspect of Revelation, or one aspect of maybe like an Old Testament passage like Leviticus, or maybe like one of the prophets like Daniel, like if all you're sharing is the stuff that is painting God, where like it's true, but that's all you're painting him with, then essentially what you're doing is you are like you're not painting a complete picture of God, to where there's this possible alienation. So, like, yes, God does have, he is a God who, will one day pour out his wrath, and will one day pour out his judgment for those who, at the end of the 1,000 days, there will be that judgment where it's like, okay, you made your choice, you made your bed, now you gotta lie in it, kind of thing. But at the same time, like, that's not all that's there. Like, you also see, mercy, compassion, slow to anger. Like, I recently read about the passage in Revelation regarding the 1,000 years, and I'm not going to say that I know this for certain, because I don't, and I could be wrong. And let me know in the comments what you think about this. But I read about that, and I even talked about it with my roommate. And again, I could be wrong, but I can't help but sort of think about this idea of when the 1,000 years are happening. Like, this is before like the final judgment. This is before the you know evil is done away with and everything like that. Like, before the beast has been set free from the abyss. Like, in the 1,000 years, Jesus will be here physically and basically give us a foretaste of what to expect in heaven. So, like, whenever we've had like a desire to, like, pet wild animals, even though we know we couldn't unless it was like under the right circumstances and under the right precautions, we will be able to do that, like, freely, like right there. And I've actually had a desire to, like, pet wild animals like foxes or cheetahs or tigers or lions, and like play with them. Like, I have that desire in me. And I know that right now I can't do that, but that's like a dream that I have. And it and this is where I could be off, but I sometimes, since reading about that, I've been kind of wondering if that's Jesus's quote unquote like second and last chance for people who question about him or don't believe in him. Like, if there's going to be like, modern day Thomases, where they're going to be like, I'm not going to believe in him unless I see his hands and his feet and his side and touch him, you know. Um, And I kind of wonder if he's going to be like, okay, I'm here. Do you see me now? Like, do you believe? Please, like, enter into my rest. I would hate to have to do this. Like, I don't want to. Especially when in the Bible it talks about how, like, that wrath that and the judgment that he's going to do, like, it's basically going to be an act that he's, for like a split like second, going to be it's going to be kind of foreign to him because he's not used to that. um and I could be completely wrong about that. I completely could be wrong about that. One of the things that one of the ways that I actually can relate to the label of a Christian agnostic is, and I heard this from Brandon Robertson's show, which I'll post the link in the comments or in the description. And he was talking about how, I don't know about all, but how for some agnostics, there's this level of humility where it's like they've got a hunch about something relating to things, God and religion and spirituality and faith, and how there's this hunch that they could be right or that they could be wrong, but they're open to changing their mind, you know? Um, and that actually leads me to another reason why I am a Christian agnostic or a Jesus follower who happens to doubt enough questions, whichever way you want to label me or whatever. I really don't care. I feel like I feel like they're just like semantics. Like, either way would work. But um, I I feel like that um, when it comes to the faith, like, I've gotten, like, when it's like, for example, like, when it comes to the fundamentals, and when it comes to the basics of the faith, the tenets, if you will, I've got no problem believing in them. Yeah, sure, I might have questions, but those questions are just merely to just understand it, just to, like, yeah, I do believe this, but, like, I don't believe this, like I feel like I don't have, like, while I do have all the information, I feel like I don't have, like, oh man, like, I do believe in the tenets and everything, but in the fundamentals and everything, but I feel like there's not as much understanding about them. So it's like it's not so much of the not believing; it's more of like a relearning of them. Because I mean, even the different church denominations will have different versions of what makes this a tenet or a core fundamental belief and what is not, and beyond that. Um, which leads me to another thing, which is that, like, it, it's like I've got no problem when somebody talks about, like, the basic fundamental tenet stuff of the faith, like the creeds, Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, any creed that makes up the Christian faith in the church. It's when people take what are beyond that and they make them fundamental. That's where I'm like, okay, like, I don't I mean, I don't know, like, for example, like, um when I'm trying to think of a good example. um like, when, like, I guess this is the only example I can think of. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but this is the only one I can think of. So, for example, being an American, and being a Christian who happens to be an American at the same time. I am thankful to be an American. I'm thankful to live in a country where I had my freedom fought for and paid for, and I can basically, have this instinct to like do whatever I want, like whatever the hell I want to do. That being said, like, one, just because I can do whatever the hell I want to doesn't necessarily mean that I should. Like exercising a call to be wise. In the words of Assassin's Creed, for those of you who are Assassin's Creed fans. Side note. But lately I've been thinking about, like, as thankful as I am to be an American, and as much as it is an honor and a privilege to be an American, at the same time, I've been wondering, like, how much of American thinking do I adopt and how much do I not when I look at scripture? Because God's kingdom is not of this world. That includes America. Like, God's kingdom surpasses America. Like, foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. God is not the God of liberals, nor is he the God of conservatives. Like, he's impartial. He's nonpartisan. He's completely other and different. And that's the other thing that kind of turns me off the face sometimes, is when people consciously or unconsciously, and if it's conscious, it's more disturbing, but when they put God in a box, so like politics, for example, like people will box God and say, well, God can't believe in any sort of like liberal thinking or liberal theology. I will say that there are certain things when it comes to how Democrats and liberals think. That I'm either not a fan of, or that I'm wrestling with. A bunch of it's kind of wrestling with, just because by default I grew up conservative. But as I got older, I started to realize that it's not just the Democrats that have issues; it's also the conservatives that have issues. There's pros and cons to both sides, and I feel like if Jesus were, and I think he has in fact been at every single election, he would agree with some of what the left is saying, but he would also agree with some of what the right says. In fact, I actually want to pull up something I saw on Instagram that kind of speaks to this. If I can find it. I'm sure I can find it. It'll just take me a little bit. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So, in 2022, let's not just preach to the choir and repeat everyone else in our circle. Christians need to, quote, tell conservatives that there is no moral order without social justice, and tell progressives that there is no social justice without absolute truth. And what's cool about that is that it's not saying we progressives are right and you conservatives are wrong, nor is it saying we conservatives are right and the progressives are wrong. The answer is like, yes, you both are correct. Like, yes. And so, like, like, that's why, while, like, yes, I do like to, go to church, and I do like to hear topics and things, and, if it's something that I have doubts on or whatever, I make sure that there's a space for me to exercise them. At the same time, that's why I also do things like Night Strike, where I put what I believe to the best of my ability into practice. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, so yeah, I'm not just somebody who likes to, believe, um, or well, not well. Let me rephrase that. It's not that I just uh, obviously there are things that I doubt and question for sure, but I'm trying to not idolize or demonize that. I basically am trying to find the space to like let those um, be expressed. But I also recognize that even though there are a ton of doubts and a ton of questions I have, that there are some things that I do know for certain, and to try and focus on those, like being love to everybody, even my enemies and my neighbor. That should be able to keep me and those of us who believe in God busy, or even question God, like busy for a while. Um, but it's also like one of the reasons why for me, like I don't just want to like stay cooped up, like go to church and then come back home and do things like college group or whatever. Like those things are good and beneficial to me, but like it's also good to like get out there and do what I'm being taught, which is to go and like that's why I see what I do with Night Strike and Because People Matter just as godly as going to church or doing the Great Commission, which I guess this will be the last thing that I'll share is that that's another thing that I kind of have a little bit of a hard time with. Not the Great Commission, but just people's understanding of it. So the Great Commission is basically for those of us who are godly, or at least for those of us who are familiar with it, is basically like to go, therefore, unto the nations and to preach the gospel, to baptize in the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit. Not that I'm against that. I'm all for that. I think that, we're supposed to do that. But I think they can sort of dumb it down to make it seem like that's the only way to do it. Especially when you've got passages where it's like clearly saying that there's more to it than that. Like, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. Or when it's like, you're not always going to have me, but you're always going to have the poor. Taking care of the orphan and the widow. Passages that clearly suggest that, like, yes, like preaching the gospel and like making disciples, like, yes, like that's like a part of it, but you can't divorce that from going and like serving the homeless or whatever. Because I've heard people make that claim and they'll divorce it, and it's like you can't divorce it. Like, what we're doing is basically what you're doing is godly, what we're doing is godly. Like, and yes, if there's a way to have a day where we can meld it, then fine. But if it's separate, it's not because one's bad and one's good. They're both good. One just has a call that's in one direction, and you can't demonize that, and well, actually, I thought that was the last thing. This is going to be the last thing. I promise. Is that's another thing that kind of gets me a little bit confused and wondering what the hell's going on. Is when you have people who have convictions on things, and they can be people who believe in God, but how you can have that same sort of sense from people who either don't believe or they do, but it's not the same. So, like, if you were to talk to like a Mormon, or if you were to talk to a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Muslim or an atheist, and they're just as passionate about what you believe to the point where they like have convictions and even references to their texts. Um, it kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, yeah, I like, do I believe that like what I have is that what I believe is true, and do I feel like there is, any sense of understanding? Yeah, but at the same time, like, I could be wrong on something, and what if some people have it right in other areas where I might be off? Like, I have to hold everything with an open hand, even if it's convictions that I feel like are straight up black and white. I could be wrong on even those things, and so, um, yeah. So, um, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, um, I feel like, um, I feel like for me, um, it's not that, and please hear me, it's not that I don't believe in Jesus anymore, or God anymore. I do believe in God, and there are, like, again, when it comes to the tenets and the fundamentals and the core things of our faith, yes, like, I do believe that. And even if it's not necessarily a doubt, but like, just like, I'm wanting to, like, relearn the basics and wanting to be like, I don't really, like, even though I believe this, like, I don't have the understanding that I want to have. Like, I want to understand these more. Um, it's the things beyond that kind of, um, where it's not clearly as black and white, at least for me, um, where things feel like a guessing game. Um, and so, yeah, that's me. That's my journey. That's where I'm at. Uh, if you found this relatable, you can feel free to, um, hit me up on here, or, um, I have a new account on, Instagram, Jacob David Lockridge. You can hit me up there. Um, and Regardless of where you're at with your faith journey, I'd love to hear it. Have a a talk, a dialogue about it, a peaceful one that can build each other up rather than tearing each other down. Um, I'd love to tell you guys more about my story. If you guys feel like I didn't cover a whole lot and you guys want to hear more in-depth details, but also I want to hear your stories, how similar or how different they are. Um, yeah, um, for now, I think I covered what I wanted to cover. And again, I don't know if I said anything in a certain tone, or if I used certain words that weren't the best and it caused you to feel offended or attacked or whatever. Again, I apologize. That's not my intention. Um, at the same time, I can't deny where I'm at anymore. And so it's kind of a double duty and kind of a hard thing to balance, how I feel since I matter, but also, like, being mindful of others and how they matter as well. So yeah, that's it. If you guys want to continue, hit me up here or on my Instagram, Jacob David Lockridge. And until next time, how I have no idea yet on how much more I want to do videos. I know I want to do more. I just don't know how much, just because of my schedule and everything. But I'll definitely do my best to try and see if I can make it a monthly thing, or whatever the case may be. But I definitely miss you guys on here, and want to have this be like a somewhat of a regular thing, since I usually, like, don't do another thing for a few months. So I want to try and see if I can cut that down a little bit. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and until next time, you guys have a great week.